Awesome. All right, will I be able to see questions or anything, or?
I have people standing by, so I will be able to ask you questions, I think. So
Okay.
hopefully. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are on episode 1 of Flip It Red, and our flagship guest is going to be Samantha Cook. She is running for House District 1 in Denver, Colorado. Samantha, what is up?
Not much, just enjoying, I love Colorado. Colorado is awesome. So I'm really grateful and blessed to be able to live here and hopefully in the very near future represent my community. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're pretty young and you're gorgeous and you have a lot of energy and you have kids and you're married and you have a lot going on in your life. What made you want to run?
I get asked that a lot. And usually when people ask me that question, it's more of a tone of, why did you decide to run? It's not ever really something people understand. But honestly, I had attended a couple of hearings about 1.5 years ago to share my perspective on some issues that were happening. And I felt very, very dismissed. And I think that I shared kind of that feeling with a lot of other people that were in attendance. And I felt that that wasn't really an appropriate way to represent your community and to listen to people who show up to share their concerns. I'm a mom. I have 3 children of my own. I'm a business owner. So, I understand and I relate to the people that are concerned about what's happening in schools and concerned about what's happening in our city and, the business shutdowns and, the homeless situation and all of these things that factor in just to being able to succeed and to thrive in this city. And there's just a lot of concerning things happening. So I'm just one of those people that I can rant and rave about what's happening all day long, but if I want to see something change, then I'll step up and make that happen. So that's kind of what pushed me to run.
I love that. And honestly, I wish that we had more people who are willing to make the sacrifice that you're willing to make, because I see a lot of people complaining about everything that's going on. They're complaining about the results of elections that either they didn't participate in or voted in such a way that created the situation that's going on in their community. And yet they're not willing to go out and actually do anything about it. So to see young, energetic patriots come out and really want to make a positive change, because let's face it, we're in a war for the soul of our nation. And Colorado is right in the heart of America. And I know that you guys have a lot of stuff going on there. And as you can see, I'm representing Colorado today. I grew up there.
I love it. I should have gotten my Colorado shirt on. I didn't even think of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's my home state. So the stuff that I see happening there, it breaks my heart. And I would love to help anybody fix that. And that's the whole point of the series, just so you guys know.
Yep.
We are interviewing as many candidates as possible to flip as many seats as possible, because there's a lot of enthusiasm for President Trump, but the people who are running our local communities are the ones that are having the biggest impact on our lives. Yep. And I mean, if you look at places like Denver, if you look at places like Chicago and Portland, these are the people who are allowing the protesters to tear down statues and graffiti up our buildings and burn things down. And so everybody needs to get involved, and people like Samantha are going to be the ones who are going to actually fix that situation and make everybody safer. So let's talk about Colorado for a second. You have a lot of really radical representatives there. I mean, just right off the bat, your governor, Polis.
Yep. Yeah. And it was interesting. Probably a few months ago, there was a clip of him on one of these news interviews saying that he was not a socialist the way that Trump is a socialist. And I know, I was like, I think we have a misunderstanding about what socialism is, but we really do have a legislature and a leadership and a majority right now that are very radical. They have been very outspoken about their support of people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and people that have really advocated for the total reform of America. And so when people are, when they're paying attention solely to what's happening with President Trump, and they're solely focused on the national issue, whether they agree with Trump or not, what they need to understand is that it's their local representatives, as you said, that make the biggest difference in their community. And if your local representative, the person that is literally representing your home and your family, is supportive of radical ideas and the total reform of America, that is what is going to impact you the most. So we really need to be paying attention to what our local representatives are doing and who they support, because who they support is indicative of the ideals that they share.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more. And the problem is that if they get enough of these smaller races, if they win enough of them and get enough of these officials into office, that's where the fundamental restructuring of our country comes into play.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They're able to completely tear down the entire system because now they're in the system.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like a virus that we've heard so much about. It starts out small and it expands and grows and can turn into something catastrophic. But it is within these small areas of government that people really don't pay as much attention to because we're so caught up in what's happening on a national level. But yeah, it's your local representative that's going to be the most connected with you. And if they're not connected with you, then you need to elect somebody that is and that represents your values.
Right, exactly. I mean, I think it's safe to say that we have more than one virus infecting this country right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And and the funny thing is, I think the coronavirus is the least of our worries with those viruses that are spreading. So we need to keep an eye on all of them.
So I read something, tell me if this is true, because I didn't actually get to hear the radio interview or whatever it was. Did Polis really call everybody bastards in Colorado if you refuse to wear a mask?
He sure did. He sure did. And I screenshot that particular comment and I put it on my campaign page. And it's really sad and unfortunate. And it really is kind of indicative of the kind of person he is, that he, is obviously so thrown off by people that are standing up for their freedom. I don't know if he thought that if he just started throwing out executive orders and tried to treat us like a socialist society, that we'd just start acting like one. So I think it really has kind of thrown a wrench in his groove when people are saying, I'm not going to wear a mask, and it's not because I don't care. It's because, I've always made personal medical decisions for myself in the past, and I trust my ability to, take care of my health more than I trust somebody in the Capitol. And I think that he is, just thrown off by that. And it seems to be a little bit of a tantrum to say, if you're not going to do it for other people, then maybe you selfish bastards will do it to take care of your own health. Right. So it was really sad to see such a dismissive and disrespectful, approach to so many good Colorado people. It was just really sad to see.
Didn't he also say in that same interview that essentially the mask mandate isn't legally enforceable, but people are too stupid to realize otherwise?
It was actually in a different interview recently, just a few days ago, where he basically said that he was hoping that that these mandates would increase mask wearing by 15 to 20%, but that he also knew people weren't going to look into the constitutional precedents of that, which indicates that he's pretty much counting on people to not question his authority and whether or not he has the right to do this. And he also said that he's, that extra 15 to 20%, we're just waiting for somebody to tell them to wear a mask.
Right.
So again, just indicative of, the disrespect and, I don't know how he expects people to listen to him and to respect his leadership and to follow what he says and to trust his motives if this is the way that we're being treated.
Yeah, I totally agree. You have a couple of other representatives in Colorado that seem pretty radical. So is it your school board director that's actually encouraging a lot of the defacing of public property and things of that nature? Tell me about that, because I'm seeing a lot of footage coming out from places like New York City, Portland, Chicago, a lot of these other violent protests. I don't know if you saw it the other day, but the Chicago police were trying to protect this Columbus statue, and the protesters were launching fireworks.
Yep, I saw that.
It's horrific. And I know it's happening in a lot of other parts of the country. I know that it's happening there in Denver. Didn't you guys have like a guillotine installed somewhere?
Yes, yes. I don't know how it popped up there, but somebody did put a guillotine right in front of the Capitol building with the message that said, "Eat the rich." So, I put it out there. I said, this is a whole new level of insanity. And unfortunately, I was met with a lot of people, these radical progressive activists that support this kind of behavior and this method of getting things done and getting their message across. I don't know at this point whether or not it has been removed. That's a separate issue from some of the things that our own Denver Public School Board director has encouraged himself. But it just comes from, I think it's just this disrespect for Colorado citizens that's spreading across our legislature and our leadership. And people just, at this point, they don't want to do something about it. They don't think that they should have to. They're passing the blame. They're encouraging this behavior. All in all, our leadership is completely falling apart.
So we actually have a question from the community. Have there been any recall efforts for your governor?
Yes, actually, I want to say maybe a year ago, maybe a little longer than that, there was a really, really strong effort by thousands of community members to recall Governor Polis. Unfortunately, it's a huge effort. It takes hundreds of thousands of signatures, and people were putting their blood, sweat, and tears into this recall. And unfortunately, we only gathered about half the signatures that we needed. And I shouldn't say we, I don't want to take credit for that effort. I encouraged and I did what I could, but there were a lot of people that really put, just a lot of their heart and soul into getting this man out of office, because he's not representing us and he's so disrespectful. And how the Democrats reacted is saying that, these people that were trying to do the recall, they basically showed up with a beer box full of signatures and they basically laughed at us. So people were really disheartened by that reaction. And I know people have talked about possibly doing it again, but at this point, they don't want to distract from from really changing our leadership this next election, which needs to be the focus right now. If people want to see real change happen, and I get asked that all the time, what can I do? What can I do? And it's like, there are so many community efforts that can be made, but the biggest thing is going to be changing leadership across the board in the Capitol building.
So now for your district, because your district has been held by a Democrat for pretty much the last 24 years.
Yes.
Okay. Are you seeing a shift in the community members? Are they kind of waking up to the fact that this has been a blue district for the last couple decades, and effectively it's just completely going down the toilet? Everything's falling apart. There's just nothing positive happening, and the people who have been elected into office aren't representing the community members. I mean, what is the general feel from the people in your district? How are you going to flip your district red?
Yeah, it's definitely been positive interaction so far with the conversations that I've had, the events and the meetings that we've had, knocking on people's doors, just approaching them and finding out like what their concerns are. And that's something that particularly the incumbent Democrat that I'm running against has not really made the effort to do. A lot of people don't even know who she is. And honestly, I didn't even know that she was my representative. And that's how disconnected she is from the community. So, I feel that if I can really let people know that we are, whether we, have voted differently in the past, that we do have a lot of common ground. We want law enforcement, we want safer schools, we want educational options, we want businesses to be able to thrive. And these are all issues that I feel are nonpartisan. So if we can really connect on those things and remind people that, hey, I'm a real person, you're a real person, and we really can relate on a lot of things, and I'm fighting for, the things that I would want in my home, I'm fighting for you as well. So I think it really is going to come down to just, reconnecting on that real level and reminding each other that we're human beings, and, we all do want what's best, and we need people in office that have that in mind and are not motivated by political interests. I'm not a career politician by any stretch of the imagination, but I kind of think that maybe that's what we need right now, that people have been in office too long and they are just completely separate from their communities at this point.
Absolutely. I mean, if you just look at Nancy Pelosi and all the Democrat leadership alone, they've been in their seats for
forever,
longer than I've even been alive.
Yeah, me too.
And Yet for some reason, all of the problems that this country is facing are somehow Trump's fault. And he's only been in office for 3.5 years, but
Right.
you guys had 30 years to fix it and you didn't. So
Right.
it's remarkable how that happened. So I completely agree. I think that people get entirely too comfortable in their position. I think that there's a lot of bureaucracy and obviously politics that go into this, and people vote a certain way. I mean, the incumbent in your district, what is her name?
Her name is Susanlontine.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, all the information that I have found about her is, I mean, she is like right there with the Democrats on the impeachment effort. She is right there just she is 100% backing them up. And for this upcoming presidential election, if we don't take back the House, we're just going to have another 4 years of investigations and impeachment attempts and presidential harassment and everything that we're seeing. And so districts like yours are, I mean, the importance cannot be understated. And please, you guys, please get involved, because if we don't at least flip the House, then the next 4 years are going to be just as difficult as the last 4 years. And I really don't want to do that.
I think that what we're seeing is not necessarily that there are a bunch of Democrats deciding to suddenly turn Republican. I think it's that a lot of people are coming at least to the center and saying, you know, this party that I have voted with for years and years and years has gone too far left. They're not listening to us anymore. You know, they're letting our cities be overrun with violence and with homelessness and with chaos and anarchy. And, you know, they're trying to take away our community safety. And a lot of these things are too extreme, even for, you know, Democrat members. When I talk about Democrats, I'm primarily referring to Democrats in Congress, in office, because I don't believe that most of the Democrat voters at this point identify with their leadership anymore. They're saying, you know, this is too much. You're taking away too much. You're not standing up for us too much. And these ideas that you're for are just too radical for even my taste. So I think a lot of people are at least coming to the center and, you know, considering, you know, maybe I need to vote a different way this time and see if that's going to improve the situation, because it's not going to get better the way that it is.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I hope that my community does the same, because I got a Democrat representative and she's just as bad. Okay. So I read recently that the governor, he's all we're going to talk about here, but it has to do with the schools reopening. Now, what is going on there? Because I have a lot of friends who still live in Colorado. Is it true that they are going to require the vaccine in order to allow the kids back into school?
I have not heard that specifically. Okay. I would not be surprised if that is something that comes down the pipeline. Yeah, the whole reopening schools issue is just a mess right now. You know, it has such a huge ripple effect as well. I mean, if your kids are not in school, we have families that have been, you know, really hit hard by this pandemic with businesses shutting down. And so now they're, you know, things are opening back up and they're trying to stabilize their income again. And now they're not sure if they're going to have a place for their children to go. Some of the start dates have been pushed back. You know, some schools are opening part-time, you know, they're going to do part-time online learning, part-time in-person learning. You know, so it's just kind of a mess. And it's interesting because a lot of these school directors that claim to be fighting for these families, their strongest stance is that they think President Trump is crazy, because President Trump has spoken a lot about opening up schools. And even in one of the town hall meetings I saw recently, the school board director was just like, well, Trump is crazy. And I'm like, that's not a platform. That's not a reason not to get our schools up and running again. So when your biggest concern is simply, you know, standing as an objection to what our president is saying versus being concerned with what's best for our students, you know, that to me is just really unfortunate, and it's not okay. As far as, you know, what's going to happen with the vaccine, we did have a huge vaccine bill that passed recently that, you know, was a huge controversy here in Colorado that a lot of parents showed up to fight against, and we were blatantly ignored. So I have a feeling that that bill will make it easier for vaccines to be, especially this particular coronavirus vaccine, to be forced on students if they want to participate in public education.
Okay, so that must be the bill that I'm thinking about. So tell me about that bill.
Yeah, it's one, I want to clarify, yes, it does still give you the option for an exemption. It does still allow you to not choose to vaccinate, but it does put a lot more hurdles in the way. So a lot of people are of the impression that anytime someone stands up against a vaccine bill, that it's because you're an anti-vaxxer. I am somebody that has vaccinated my children, on a regular schedule. It's just what we have chosen to do, and it's for our family. But I'm also advocating for parents to be able to make that decision, because ultimately they know their children's health the best between them and their physician. So I don't want them to not be able to make that choice. This bill enforces a standardized form that nobody has seen yet. We don't know what that form looks like. It makes it much more difficult to get even a religious or non-medical exemption, because it's getting closer to grouping the exemptions together, so that your doctor has to sign off, even if it's for a non-medical reason, whether it be a philosophical reason or a religious reason, or, it's just you want to exempt. So it puts more hurdles in the way of being able to make decisions as a parent that are your right to make. So that's my opposition to it. So it does make it more difficult to opt out of these vaccines.
Okay. Yeah, that's scary. It's terrifying. And everybody thinks that more government is better. Well, not everybody.
Thankfully,
the left thinks that more government is better, and that they should be like the end all be all authority on how we make these choices. And it's just, I'm sorry. No. I want to make that choice for my kids too.
Yeah, well, and one more thing that I want to point out with, anything, especially when government is starting to get involved in your medical decisions, whenever we see a bill or something put in place that takes away your right in that way, anytime they reform that bill or add on to it, it's not going to be in favor of your rights. It's going to be one more step towards less rights for you as a parent, towards less medical freedom, towards fewer choices. So it's not just the fact of what this bill does now, it's the path that it sets us on to allow government to impose themselves even more into our lives. And people need to realize government, especially the left, has historically, been in favor of slowly etching away at our rights. And we need to be careful of that.
Yep. Well, Democrats seem to forget one critical fact, is that our rights precede government.
Yes.
And they are God-given. They are not government. They're not government rights. These are God-given rights. And
exactly.
Doesn't seem to be a concept they can entirely grasp, but that's okay, because the more people infringe upon them, hopefully the more they come to our side.
Exactly.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? This is your platform. This is your chance to get your message out there, and we're going to help you reach as many people as possible. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel like one of the biggest issues happening right now is the growing homeless encampments, the tent cities in Denver right now. It's really, really sad. I moved to Denver about 12 years ago. And the reason I moved here, I had family that lived further north, so I'd never been to Denver, but I just was looking for a change. I drove into Denver and I just immediately fell in love with it. It was a beautiful city, just so many cool areas with the 16th Street Mall, so many different shops. It was just lively and booming and thriving. And I just fell in love with the city, and I knew I wanted to live here. I met my husband, we got married and had our children. We knew we wanted to raise them here. Since then, it has just completely transformed. And I want to say, I mean, the homeless situation has been something that's been happening over time, but I do feel like it's really expanded over the last 2 years. I took a video of the downtown area just a few days ago, and people were shocked at what it looks like down there. You have the Capitol building that is still covered in graffiti and vulgarities. Half the windows are boarded up with plywood, and then you have this massive tent city right in front of it. It looks like a third world country. There's another huge encampment in front of one of our middle schools where children, between the ages of 11, 13 are going, and they literally have to walk through this homeless encampment to get to the front doors of their school. So it's unfortunate, and we're seeing more of our leaders, our legislature, argue over who's responsible for cleaning it up and whose fault it is that it happened versus actually trying to do something about it. And I'm a huge advocate for we need to get more, affordable housing. We need to get these people in temporary housing to help them clean up their lives and get them back into society. But just allowing them to live on our streets, it's not compassionate, and it's not helping anybody. It's not helping them, and it's not helping people that live and have businesses in those areas.
Absolutely.
So that's a huge issue.
I agree with that 100%. And it's funny. I'd love to see some of that footage, that if you're able to capture some more, because we hear about these homeless encampments mainly in California and places like San Francisco and, the surrounding areas there.
Right.
And we know that it's a problem. And we know that it's a problem for a lot of places around the country. And it seems like everywhere that it's happening is under Democrat leadership. And
is that
so
a coincidence,
I know that,
or?
Well, I guess, if I don't really believe in that many coincidences.
Right.
But I find it interesting that they want to shift blame to other people. And it's like, well, you are in charge here.
Yeah.
People elected you to address these issues. So how can you shift blame to somebody else when you literally ran on a platform to fix your community? And now you're not. Like, even if it is someone else's fault, you can still offer a solution. That's your job. Do your job.
Right. And I know that in the past, there was an initiative not too long ago. I was trying to find the name of it. I couldn't find the name, where we really, we tried to ban camping on the streets and in our public parks. And it was shot down as being, that's not compassionate. And to me, it's not compassionate to say, we're just going to leave you on the street and leave you be and do nothing about it. To me, sometimes it takes a little bit of tough love and say, I understand that this is a tragic situation and it's difficult, but we want to help you and push you towards resources to get your life back together, to overcome, if there's a mental health issue or if there's a drug addiction, to help you reclaim your life and to live your life to the best ability. So right now, all that's happening is they're just being left out there to live. And, what that sends a message is that Denver is a city that just doesn't care. And that's not who we are. We have, the ability to do something about it. So it takes a conscious decision. This is not something that just happens. It takes a conscious decision from our leadership to not do anything about it.
Absolutely. No, they are definitely making a choice to be inactive.
Yep.
Because they spring into action when it comes to allowing people to protest and riot. And if they put a Black Lives Matter mural all over the ground and somebody defaces it, they're out there within 24 hours to clean it up. So we know they have the ability to take action. They just choose not to.
Right. Absolutely. It's unfortunate.
So closing question actually comes from a member of our community. What is it going to take to get Colorado red again?
I think it's going to come down to those face-to-face conversations and getting people out to vote. I hear this common idea, I guess, amongst Republicans. They're starting to feel like their vote doesn't matter anymore, that it doesn't matter if they, show up to the ballot box because, we're outnumbered. It's not going to matter if they submit their ballot or not. And we need to get people out of that funk and say, my platform and my, slogan, I guess, is your voice matters. And I like to think of it in terms, because I'm somebody who likes to sing, I love music. And I think of it in terms of, somebody's starting to sing and, they're alone in this song. And then a bunch of people come in and suddenly you have this choir and this voice that's so loud and overpowering. And every single one contributes to that. And that's kind of how we need to, look at our election here. Every single voice coming together is how we're going to make that difference. We've got to show up. We've got to get our friends to show up and not be afraid to have, difficult conversations and ask them, do you like what's happening to our city? Do you approve of it? Or maybe is it time to look at, someone who perhaps, has a different political affiliation and maybe give them a chance to turn things around and see if we can make some changes.
I love that analogy. I've never heard that analogy. And like, when you said it, I got like kind of chills. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that is powerful. That's great.
I work better.
Drive that home on the campaign trail.
I will.
Okay. Well, everybody, if you have any more questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments, because a lot of people are going to be watching this video after it's not live. and we will email them to Samantha and
Awesome.
let her address them. If we need to have a follow-up interview because you guys just love her so much, we are absolutely willing to do that. If you have any more people that we can talk to, please message them to me at the closet on the right, because this is our mission, our election cycle. We are in a fight for the soul of our country, and we're going to do everything that we can to make a difference. So Samantha, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time, and we're going to do everything in our power to help you flip your seat red.
Yes, and it's going to take all of us. Please go to my website. It is samantha4coloradovalues.com. It is definitely what I stand for. I stand for, the values of our family, the values of our community, the values of our country. Samantha4coloradovalues.com. Please make a donation, and please do send me any questions you have. I am so excited to engage in conversations with people and find out what they're really concerned about.
Absolutely. We will post your website down in the comments so everybody can have a direct link to your website and they can learn more about you.
Perfect.
And you know what, girl? Best of luck to you. God bless. And also, Samantha is going to a defend the police rally.
Yep.
Later on today. So send her good positive vibes that she stays safe, because we already know that there's going to be counter protesters there. We're going to get footage from that from Samantha, and we're going to post it so you guys can stay abreast on what's going on in Colorado. And this was awesome.
Yeah,
thank you for being our flagship episode.
Of course, I'm happy to do it. No, I appreciate you inviting me and look forward to future conversations.
You bet. I would love to have you back on.
Awesome.
All right, you guys, I love you very much. I hope you're having an amazing Sunday. And until next time, help me flip it red. All right. Bye.
Bye.